Well, today's project is a starter on a John Deere 333G skid loader, track loader, skid steer. Some people call them bobcats. Got a problem with the starter. It's way down in there, and to get to it, got to pull this alternator off. It says all you have to do is take these AC lines off. I don't know if I'm gonna have to take that compressor off or not, but you take your belt loose rather. You can see that belt tensioner tab right there. You put a 3/8 socket wrench in there, get your belt loose. Now you don't have to take your belt all the way off, and it's actually still tight right there, but as long as it's out of the way of the alternator. Take your AC line loose, clip your little zip tie here so we can get that line out the way. Move it up. Then you have access to a 13mm bolt there, one there. Get those off, and then we can move the alternator a little bit and take the connections off the back. Once you get to this point, be real careful with your connector. Try to work it. See if you can get it to come off. And if you're having problems with it, this one's already been broke. Somebody doing what they shouldn't have. If you push that down, it doesn't come off. Get your right angle pick, stick it in there, lift that little tab up to clear that tab right there, and it'll pull right off. Now take that 13mm nut off and your ground right there, which is an 8mm 5/16. So now that that's out the way, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the AC compressor because it's really not that hard to get off. You just have to take this line off, loose here, take that line off. Both of these are 5mm Allens. Pop your one connector off, and then that's out of the way. I'm also gonna take this off because I just lost what I thought was a captured nut on here. It's actually underneath the compressor, so I'll get it out of the way, and that'll give us a little more access to that starter over there anyway. Now, see a little red boot, we need to take that 13mm nut off the back, then the other nut to get the other power wires off. And after we do that, that little wire right there is a flat blade, I think. We take that screw out and then all of our wires out, and then we need to take the starter bolts out. I'll get them wires out of the way and I'll show you the two starter bolts. A little spot right there. That's a 7mm bolt. It has a flat on it, so you can use a flat blade screwdriver, but a 7mm seems to work better. And fortunately, I can't believe this is an actual John Deere spade, but they have a spade, so you just have to loosen it and pull that out. All right, now is the fun part. Because way back in there that you can't see, that bolt right there. And there's another one on the bottom. You gotta figure out how to get those two bolts out, and once those two bolts are out, then we can fish that starter up through this little hole. Now, it's pretty much impossible for me to show you that bolt, but you can see I have I think a 12-inch extension there, then another 12-inch extension going right back there to connect that one to get that lower bolt out. So that's the bolt you're after. It's a 17mm. I thought it was a 3/4, but I was wrong. And the only way that I could actually get it to fit was use a 3/8. I tried using a 1/2 inch, and there's just not enough room. So take your bottom bolt out first. Now we'll work on getting that top bolt out. All right, now the starter's loose. Just have to see. Probably have to turn the camera off. Don't know if I'll be able to get this guy out one-handed. It's heavy. Yeah, I'm turning the camera off. And there you have it. Now the damage done right here was actually from me. The starter was already messed up. I was trying to hit it with a pry bar to get it to start, to get the arms to come up so we could lock the pin up there. But that didn't happen, so we had to use that backhoe to lift the arms, disconnect the cylinders, lift it up a little bit, and then block it up there. But that's the hole that it fits in. So I'm gonna grab the new starter, get it set up, and show you guys a little trick to getting those bolts back in, because you can't put your fingers in there to start them. So I need the bolt to stay in the socket. Now, because it's easy to see, I'm gonna show you guys the solenoid and what was causing the problem. So whenever you turn the key on, it sends, or you put it in the start position, it sends 12 volts to here. This hooks straight to the battery, so it always has voltage to it. There's voltage here, but you need to connect voltage here. And you also, on some starters, need this gear to kick out. And I believe this is one of those that it should, yeah, once it spins, it'll kick itself out. So that pushes that little fulcrum in there, little lever. But what happens is this is what makes contact, this little plunger. And you see how it's all carboned up and really rough. If you have low voltage in your battery and you try to start it, you'll end up overheating this little copper piece, and these just go out over time anyway. They're only designed to last a certain amount. But that plunger sometimes gets really thin, sometimes just gets carbon built up on it like it does here, and if you're having a problem, you can hold the key in the start position, have somebody tap the starter, and that's usually enough to where these contacts here will find a good spot and then start it. That's why sometimes when you pull starters off, they're all hammered up and you'll see hammer marks all over, and that means that starter solenoid's gone bad. Occasionally the brushes in here can be the issue, and that's what when you're hitting it, the vibration will get those loose, but it's generally just this solenoid right there. But you can tell, like, we've got a lot of carbon built up, which tells me that this thing sat for quite a while and then was started, and it was really, really slow because the battery was bad or dead. But anyway, we're gonna get our new starter out from John Deere, a little $800 starter, and get to putting it in. Other thing, whenever you're doing this, make sure you lie the old starter down. Get your new starter and make sure everything's the same, and I mean everything. You want to make sure that this ring right here is the same size. There's the same amount of teeth on the gear itself. Make sure that you see how half that gear has a little ramp to it. Sometimes starters are designed for different rotation, and that'll be backwards. And if it's backwards, it's going to spin your engine backwards, and then your motor won't start, and then it causes all kinds of problems. So this is a solution I came up with for the top. Don't know if you'll be able to see it down in there or not. Way down there, I have that gripper on there, and then just spun it. So that got the top finger tight. We didn't lose the bolt. The bottom one's going to be a little trickier. I'm going to try to use this to see if I can just blindly fill the hole. If so, great. If not, then we'll have to come up with another trick. Oh, well, that was a pain in the butt. But I used a couple of little tools. One, that little gripper. And if you guys don't have one of these, I'll put a link down in the description. They are so handy and they're cheap. They're like $5-10 or something. Now the little arms, or little fingers rather, they will get messed up over time, but they work good. This one used to have a light on it. Has batteries that go in there and a little cap, but being on a service truck, it always rattles loose. And here's a cheap little borescope that I got off of Amazon. I don't remember the brand of this, and they probably don't make it anymore. I bought it a long time ago. It's Depth Tech. Super handy, like 12 bucks. The app is free, and it's worked great. And it's really long. It's one of the things I like about it is super long. Now they make really expensive borescopes, like Milwaukee has them, Snap-on, everybody else has them. I like this one because it's tiny. I keep it in my truck, and if I mess it up, I just buy another one for 15 bucks or whatever. But get your little gripper and that dude, and then you can sneak it in there. You can actually watch your gripper holding the bolt, stick in that hole, and start it. Other than that, you might be able to maybe get some super glue and super glue the bolt to the socket, and then try to stick it in there. It'll probably work that way. I wouldn't put a lot of super glue on it, just a couple of drops. I've done that before. That's worked. If it's not such a tight spot, you can get some grease. I get grease and I get dirt like that. I mix it in, make kind of like a little slurry, stick it in my socket, jam the bolt in there, and that's a lot of times just enough to hold that bolt in. I wouldn't do that on this one just because you're probably going to knock it off and have a problem with it. But I'm going to go ahead and get those bolts tightened down and then start hooking the starter back up. All right, so I got the starter mounted, all the cords hooked up, got my compressor back. Now, when I took the compressor off, that belt came off. So put the belt back on that pulley, and then we put the alternator on there. We have less to go on our belt tensioner. So a little tip about alternators. You see this little metal or this steel collar that's in aluminum? As you tighten that bolt down, it actually draws that this way, and it makes it a real pain in the butt to put an alternator back on. That's why sometimes when you take an alternator off, you put it back on, you have to like hammer it in. If you'll take a punch and a hammer, and you'll just tap that just a little bit, that'll give you enough space to where you can mount it up by hand and slide your bolt in and not have to fight it so much. All right, everything's on, compressor's on, alternator's on. Does need a new belt, it's missing a couple of ribs for some reason. And the starter is in its little hidey hole. So now I'm gonna tighten up those lines, connect the battery, and then hopefully next video will be inside the cab starting this sucker. Now, let's see if I can remember this. Ah, no code needed. And she started right up. Unlock our hydraulics. It's going to take a second for those cylinders to fill back up. And that's it. It's definitely not one of the hardest starters I've done, but it is definitely one of the most pain in the asses. All I've got left is to put the covers back on the side, top off the hydraulic fluid, and then this one's done. Pack up my tools. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, little how-to. I really hope one of you guys that needs to change a starter on a 333G takes advantage of this video and is able to see how to do it. The biggest pain in the butt is getting those bolts on the starter. Get you that little claw tool. That thing made a world of difference, and a borescope. And with some patience, you can get it done. If you guys want that borescope, if they have the same brand, I'll link it down in the description below. I know they're going to have the little claw tool. I'll link that in the description below. The borescope brand that I use isn't available. I'll find one that's highly rated and put it in the comments. Other than that, there's really no specialty tools that I could tell you. There is one thing on the alternator, those little tabs that I showed you guys that you had to hammer back down. For some vehicles manufacturers, they do this retarded deal where they take these little metal spacers and you have to stick the bolt through the starter, put the spacer, hold it while you slide the bolt in, and there's no room. So if you take some super glue, get that spacer that's on for the one on the top, put super glue around the end, stick the bolt all the way through the hole, then the spacer hold it in the middle, stick that bolt through, thread it in, and then touch that spacer to the alternator and just hold it there for a second. Then it'll stay on there. But hope you liked the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get out and fix it.